movie opens up with a sniper named Dresa. She's aiming for her target inside a tunnel, waiting for the perfect kill shot. Suddenly, a government official steps off a plane at the airport. Drasa eliminates him with a single shot. Drasa had planned this mission very carefully. She fired from such a long distance that the guards couldn't tell. They didn't know who fired or from where. After the mission, Drasa visits her mother's grave. Her father is already there waiting for her. She hands him a bullet shell. Actually, Dresa is a contract killer she kills for money. She's always given top secret missions, and whenever she completes a mission, she gives the bullet shells to her father, so the pain won't hurt him as much. Then Drasa reveals that she's been assigned another top secret mission that will last a whole year. Her father looks at her and says,
"Cancer eats me from the inside out. Easy solution. I've already decided. February 14th, Valentine's Day. I'm going to do it myself."
Hearing this, Drasa's eyes are filled with tears. The scene then shifts to Levi. He wakes up from a terrifying nightmare. He jumps in his car and drives straight to the beach. There he opens his diary and writes poetry. This calms him down. Suddenly, he receives a message on his phone. There's an address in the text, and he's supposed to go immediately. The address turns out to be a military base, where a senior female officer is waiting for him. Her name is Barto. Levi is actually a former Marine sniper, but now he's retired. Barto wants to send Levi on a top secret mission. She tells him he's an exceptional sniper. This mission, no one else can do it better than you. Then she asks him a question.
"So do you presently have a girlfriend? Anyone special? Someone who couldn't live without you?"
No.
Barto tells him to get ready. His mission will begin in just a few hours. He's being sent away for a year. Then they make Levi unconscious. And when he opens his eyes, he's on an airplane. A soldier takes his ID, watch, and his phone. He'll get everything back when the mission is complete. She then explains that after landing, he must walk 32 kilometers north. Only then will he reach the mission site.
Where are we?
I'm not authorized to answer that.
The plane hatch opens and Levi jumps off the plane. Once he lands, the real test begins. He has to walk 32 kilometers to reach the mission site. After the 2 days of non-stop hardships, he finally finds the place. Levi sees a massive, deep canyon surrounded by the woods, with smoke rising from everywhere. There is no human population here. Then he meets a soldier named JD. JD has been on this mission for the past year. JD leads Levi up to a watchtower. Levi asks him what he's supposed to do here. JD explains, "This is a very strange, very deep chasm, and we call it the Gorge." Then JD explains the rules of this place. You've got every kind of weapon and ammo you'll need. Every 600 meters, there are automatic machine guns. You'll have to check those guns and landmines daily, and make sure they're always reloaded. Across the gorge, there's an east tower. The Russians control it. There's a guard station there too. He's doing the same mission, but neither of them is allowed to communicate with the other. You won't be able to communicate with the outside world, since this place is cloaked, which makes it invisible to the satellites. It doesn't even show up on Google Earth. You'll have to stay alert here at all times. You can be attacked anywhere, anytime. Then JD tells him, if you ever hear loud air raid sirens,
You run like hell. Copy that.
this place is kept so secret that even 13 American presidents and 9 Russian dictators never knew it existed. Levi listens to everything carefully, but he is still confused. What's his actual mission? JD then quietly pulls out a grenade and throws it into the gorge.
What the hell is that?
That is what we call the Hollow Men.
They hear a horrifying sound coming from inside the gorge, which sounds like the terrifying roars of creatures from hell. Levi's mission is to make sure those things never get out of the gorge.
In the late 1940s, they sent 3 entire battalions, 2,400 men on horseback into the gorge to clean it out. Not a single man returned.
Then JD starts to pack up. His mission is complete, so he's leaving. He says goodbye to Levi and walks away with a smile, but his happiness doesn't last long. A helicopter arrives, lowering a rope. JD confirms his identity.
Thank you for your service.
Then the man cuts the rope and JD goes down. JD's death makes it clear that whoever comes here, they never leave. The next day, Levi checks everything again, reloads the automatic guns. Days turn into weeks, and just like that, a month passes. He's starting to lose his mind of boredom, so he looks for books to pass the time. Then he notices old quotes from previous soldiers on the wall. Every one of them contains fear and stories about the Hollow Men. One day, a faint voice echoes from across the gorge. Levi peers through his scope, and there she is, Dresa, across the gorge. Her beauty captivates him for a moment, but communicating with her is against the rules. A few days later, it's Drasa's birthday. She writes on the whiteboard asking his name. Levi reminds her that's against the rules. Still, Drasa smiles and writes down her name and that it's her birthday. Levi gives in and tells her his name too. They both raise a glass for her birthday. Drasa starts celebrating her birthday by dancing to music. She asks Levi to dance with her. Levi writes that he's a terrible dancer. Then Drasa asks, what are you good at? Then Levi writes that he's a pretty good shot. Drasa places a bottle on her balcony railing, but Levi didn't fall for the rage bait. Drasa provokes Levi by shooting down his bottle. Levi gets furious and fires one clean shot. The bottle shatters. Drasa enjoys Levi's shooting. Just then, Drasa noticed something below the west tower. She alerted Levi to look down. Something monstrous was climbing up from below. Dozens of horrifying creatures are heading straight for the west tower. Levi grabbed his rifle and started firing one shot after another, but there were too many of them. Drasa pulled out a machine gun, and together they unleashed hell onto the... Suddenly, one of the monsters climbed up onto Drasa's tower. More of them were rising from below. One monster fell onto the landmine, and a metal piece struck Drasa in the shoulder. Levi switched to the machine gun and obliterated the creatures. Drasa got up and joined the party. Soon, the automated guns were also triggered by the monsters, firing on their own. They fought through the night until the light of dawn. Drasa then bandaged her wound, smiling through the pain, and wrote, "This was her best birthday ever." The next morning, Levi installed new landmines and reloaded the guns. Just then, a drone emerged from the depths of the gorge. It scanned the area briefly, then flew away. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Now they were very close. They wished Merry Christmas to each other, made snowmen. They even played chess together. Now the two couldn't imagine life without each other. But one day, Drasa looked very sad and heartbroken. Her father had promised her that on February 14th, he'll take his own life. She wrote to Levi, "I wish you were here with me today." Levi couldn't hold back anymore. The next day, he built a custom rocket and tied a rope to it. Drasa secured the rope to a tree on her side. Levi wrote, "What about dinner tonight?" Then Levi glides on the rope. But he got stuck midway. For half an hour, he pulled himself forward with his hands. He gets really tired. Finally, he reached the East Tower. Drasa greeted him with a smile.
I made rabbit pie. Do you like rabbit pie?
I brought you flowers.
Thank you.
Drasa told him to freshen up. Levi hurried off to take a shower, but Drasa intentionally hung his clothes far out of reach. Later, they sat together talking for hours. Drasa opened up about her father. He is gone now. Levi shared his nightmares and stories from his army days.
What's the longest kill shot you've ever made? Don't say that you don't know. Come on.
3,241 meters.
A kill shot.
Yeah.
That would put you in...
Top 5 in the world.
That night, they danced all night to the music, and finally, they shared their best moments with each other. Levi whispered, "I wrote a poem for you. When we get out of here, I'll read it to you." The next morning, he said goodbye.
I fucking loved the rabbit pie.
They kissed and he left for the West Tower. But then the monsters began climbing again. One hit a landmine, triggering a massive explosion. Levi's rope snapped. Drasa quickly grabbed a parachute and a couple of guns, and without thinking, she jumped into the gorge. She landed straight into a raging river. The current carried her away, but somehow she made it to the shore. Meanwhile, luckily, Levi landed in the branches of a giant tree. When he opened his eyes, a giant insect was crawling toward him. Levi barely survived, then fell, crashing down onto the tree's roots below. The tree's roots coiled tightly around him. Suddenly, Drasa appeared out of nowhere. She cuts through the roots. The two stand up, staying very alert. There was nothing but silence all around them. Then, out of the mist, two monsters on horses charged toward them. Levi and Drasa prepared themselves for the fight. After a brutal struggle, they finally take both monsters down. Levi notices something. The monsters are wearing American Army uniforms, and that's when JD's words echo in his mind.
All these uniforms are from the 1940s.
In the late 1940s, they sent 3 entire battalions, 2,400 men on horseback into the gorge to clean it out. Not a single man returned.
It turns out that the Hollow Men were none other than those American soldiers. As they move deeper ahead, they see things beyond imagination. Skeletons everywhere, with trees and plants growing right through them. Then they hear movement between the trees. The Hollow Men are coming again. Their hearts pound in terror. They rush into a broken church for cover. Inside, there are skeletons on every bench. Suddenly, skull-faced spiders attack them from everywhere. Levi and Drasa desperately fight them off, but then the Hollow Men monsters break through the door. They turn to fight again, back to back. Drasa then pulls out a grenade and blows up the church wall, and the two sprint out of the church. Running through the ruins, they stumble upon an old tunnel. Turns out it's not just a tunnel, it's a lab. Broken machines and shattered glass containers were everywhere. Inside, they find an old DVD. Levi plays it, and they see a terrified female scientist appear on screen. She explains that the scientists here were working on a biochemical missile project until a massive earthquake struck and the chemicals leaked. Toxic gas filled the air, and soon people became infected. The scientist admits she's infected too. They begged the army to destroy the gorge to contain the infection, but the army refused. Then Levi noticed a modern computer there. When he turns it on, the truth unfolds. A company called Dark Lake Corporation has been collecting samples of Hollow Men, and they are creating super soldiers. That's why both America and Russia want this place hidden, not destroyed. There's even a live biochemical missile stored here. If it detonates, everything within a 4.2-kilometer radius will vanish. Now it all makes sense. Officer Bardo would do anything to keep this secret buried. She sends only soldiers who have no one in this world. They're eliminated after their mission is complete. Just like JD, as soon as they step out of the secret facility, a monster on a horse whips a rope around Drasa and drags her away. Levi chases after her through the fog, following her trail until he reaches a massive missile. It's a biochemical missile, and now Levi finally understands. When JD told him, if you ever hear loud air raid sirens,
You run like hell.
Copy that.
he was actually talking about this missile. Meanwhile, the monster had captured Drasa. He somehow managed to break free. She then fights back with everything she's got. A brutal fight breaks out. The monster swings a sword, slashing through the air. Drasa grabs a burning log and thrusts it into the beast, setting it ablaze. And just then, Levi shoots the monster from behind. The path ahead was even more dangerous. Here, humans and plants had fused together. Then the two crossed the bridge carefully, every step calculated. But Drasa's foot landed on the wrong spot. Suddenly, the plant-like creatures woke up and wrapped their roots around her. Levi slashed his way through with his sword, fighting to reach her. They were just about to escape when one of the roots grabbed his leg. Drasa quickly launched a grenade, triggering a massive explosion. Everything around them burned to ashes. They moved forward and found a garage. Inside, there was a jeep. They jumped in and drove away to the edge of the gorge. At the edge of the gorge, they spotted a long rope stretching all the way up to the east tower. Levi got a brilliant idea. He tied the jeep to the rope, but the hollow men had already caught up. Drasa turned back to hold them off. Then, together, the jeep started climbing up the rope, but more monsters were climbing up toward them. Drasa jammed a metal box onto the accelerator. Now the jeep dangled midair as they fought off monsters crawling up the rope. Levi sliced through them one by one with his sword. Thinking fast, Levi punctured the jeep's fuel tank and fired a flare. The explosion engulfed the monsters in flames. Drasa cut the rope, sending the burning jeep crashing down into the gorge. Once they reached the top, they both made a promise. They would destroy this place together, so that no other soldier would ever be trapped in this nightmare again. Drasa smiled faintly and said, I have a safe place in France. We'll go there, get married, and start a new life. Levi agreed. Levi then said goodbye.
What were you gonna say?
That I love you.
And returned to his tower. Just then, Bardo talked to him through the radio.
Our research drone computer system was activated. Did you go into the gorge?
Negative. You are to neutralize your counterpart immediately. Do you understand?
Levi agreed, but Bardo had already seen everything through the surveillance cameras. She knew they were planning to escape, so she boarded a helicopter herself and flew straight to the east tower. But by then, the two were already prepared. They had rigged all the cloakers. Both of them ran as far as possible from the gorge. Bardo sent drones to hunt them down. Levi and Drasa fought back fiercely, taking the drones out one by one. Then Levi took the longest shot of his life and blew up the cloaker. One after another, all the cloakers exploded. This exposed the gorge to the satellites. That's when the siren went off. Bardo panicked.
We have 2 minutes.
She scrambled into her helicopter and took off. Levi and Drasa ran with everything they had, trying to escape the danger zone. The missile's explosion would turn everything into dust within 4.2 kilometers. Drasa managed to get far enough, but Levi's leg was injured, so he couldn't run fast. As the missile activated, a deafening explosion tore through the gorge. The entire area turned to dust. Bardo's helicopter lost balance and crashed. Levi couldn't make it out in time. The blast carried him straight into the lake below. Everything was gone. The gorge, the hollow men. Only Drasa survived. She waited for him. 5 days passed, and there was still no sign of Levi. Months later in France, Drasa read Levi's poem and remembered him. She now works at a small hotel, until one day a familiar voice broke her routine. Levi had ordered a rabbit pie. Drasa froze for a moment, then ran towards him and hugged him tight. Finally, they were together, and the movie ends. For more movie recaps like this, subscribe and press the bell icon. And don't forget to like the video. See you in the next one. Goodbye.